Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, it's too loud. Too loud. It is Monday. Kind of the Monday afterwards here, because we had a pretty big non-farms on Friday, although it was not necessarily because of the data, but because the guys in the treasuries were a little bit too short. So what do we got going on this morning? Let's see what the aftermath is, see if we can kind of glean anything about where we might go this week. So here you got the move from Friday. It really was a monster move up. Now, in the overnight session, we did get some comments from Fed's Bowman, kind of suggesting that she was in favor of more rate increases. So we did come back, but nothing too dramatic. And now we are bouncing a little bit. Over here in the S&P 500, they really took it on the nose as a result, although it didn't quite happen until, you know, a little bit later in the day, like after lunch, the selling came in. So that's them. The oil kind of took a jump and then came back. Silver and gold actually rose, which is also like really, really curious on all of this. Kappa's still just kind of languishing down there. And then we got the dollar. The dollar took a huge hit off of that non-farms payroll, but is retracing now back to 102 at least. And then we got Bitcoin. Bitcoin fell on the news, but not much. And Bitcoin just continues to like do nothing. I mean, it's slightly down, but there is not a lot of interest in the Bitcoin world right now. So that continues to be a curiosity. I'm sitting over here like, that can't last forever, right? But it kind of feels like it's just going to keep doing that forever. So when we come back here and we kind of try and analyze what are the flows going to be here in the treasuries, well, we are clearly getting some selling today because of Fed's Bowman and some people starting to make the bet that the Federal Reserve will have to raise interest rates further. But I think that there's also going to be some CTAs starting to, well, you know, if they didn't puke on Friday, they're going to be pairing their positions here. You know, there is a little bit of, I would say there's a decent amount of volume on this latest trend from the pit open. So there is definitely a group of traders here that think the play is long. Let's see what else. We need to go into the calendar for this week because we do have some stuff going on. Although I think that the main speaker, yeah, Harker Bowman 6:30. Oh, Bowman is supposed to be speaking right now. So there we might be getting more Fed speak here. So I guess we should be on our toes. Oh, that's interesting. Jim Iorio. If you bought a stock 3 to 4 years ago and it gained 7 to 8% per year, then you sell it, you get charged 23.8% on your gain, and you have less buying power now with the dollars you used to buy the stock. Inflation and capital gains turns most trades into losers. I would want to see more math there, but okay. Anyways, so we don't have anything super big today, but we do have some stuff later this week, right? So on Thursday, we got CPI, and Friday is PPI. And then before that, we have 10-year auctions. We have auctions this week, but Wednesday it's 10-year, Thursday it's 30-year. I don't have 5-year on there. I guess maybe we need to go to Treasury Direct to see, because I think that there's going to be more earlier than that. Auctions. Where is the schedule? See the list of upcoming auctions. Today is the 7th. Okay, so today, the 8th, we've got 17 4 and 8-week bills. Then on Wednesday, we got 13-week, 26-week. Okay, so we got 8. Oh, tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow is a 3-year. I'm going to say there's usually one, they usually do a shorter term one. Not 5-year, 3-year. That's curious. Okay. So, plenty of, I would say, good economic releases and news for us to trade off of. My nose is being kind of itchy again. I need to blow my nose here in a bit. Nick Timmeros quoting Black Knight as of June, U.S. home prices have fully erased their 2022 corrections, hitting new all-time highs on both seasonally adjusted and non-seasonally adjusted bases. 30 of 50 major markets are seeing prices above 2022 levels. Forex Live reporting, Fed's Bowman repeats that she expects additional rate increases. I'm going to come over here and refresh this page because I wasn't hearing anything from Financial Juice. We will be looking for evidence inflation is on a consistent and meaningful downward path in making decisions. Dude, so I got been getting some new stationery in to to write things down with a little bit better, because I just wanted a darker, more permanent ink. And I'm just looking at it, and I bet you can see. Oh yeah, oh, you definitely can. Like the ones down here that I've written, it's so clear. I have to have a couple of medical things to take care of today, not just for me, but for my wife. She's got some thyroid issues, and you make sure that we call the doctor about that today, because she's almost out and she has to get a new doctor. Okay, so they did come back 2 or 3 ticks. I'm seeing healthy amounts of volume trading at each price. It looks like there was a pretty big trade that went off at 30 though, which I think is a price that we saw relatively significant things happen before, haven't we? Yeah, but maybe way back. You're long? If I had, decided to take a trade right at the beginning, I guess I could have justified taking it long, but I'm still really uncertain what the flows are actually going to be here in the end. One of the issues I have here is like, okay, so if I'm a CTA, well, number one, if I'm a CTA and I don't have to be in treasuries, I maybe wouldn't be right now, because I just feel like it was such a crowded trade. Like going into the non-farms, I think you don't want to be in that. It's too crowded of a trade. If you were stuck in it, maybe you puked on that news, because there's certainly a lot of people that puked on those news. So those that didn't, they're coming in today. Are they looking at getting out and or possibly flipping? I think that there certainly could be some, but I'm a little weary about if that flow is that big or not. But the flows so far have been to the long side. And I'm kind of thinking at the moment that action is probably more speculative. Could be wrong, but that's just kind of my judgment. I when I come in and I'm looking at like how it's been trading, like the liquidity has been good, right? Then the amounts that they've been trading as they've gone, I'd say the overall volume is about average for a Monday, which is relatively low, slightly lower than the average. But the amount that they're trading to clear prices is pretty healthy. Those orders are not pulling. So it doesn't look to me like the market makers are too scared here. And that's kind of why I'm a little bit wary about trying to like take this long and just like really hold it or something. Of course, it could flip back down short really quickly if it happens, but you know, could be one of those things where like everybody gets chased out, and then as soon as they're all out, they just come back in, right? So I'm over here like, if I want to find somebody on Twitter, do I still search for like, you know, person's name, Twitter? Well, I was looking at just Jeff Curry, who's their commodities analyst, is set to leave Goldman Sachs, and a lot of people are like sad about it. But he doesn't have a Twitter account. Larry H. Summers, if you look at wage inflation, it was faster for the month than for the quarter, faster for the quarter than for the year, and running for the quarter at about 4.9%. That is not consistent with 2% underlying inflation or close, and unemployment ticked down. Larry H. Summers, we've got a very strong economy, and we're worried that the plane will overshoot the runway. I'm with you there, but I don't think that the rest of the market is actually concerned about it. Let's scroll back here a little bit, see if there's anything else. Elon Musk, 8 hours ago, praising Diablo 4 as a great game. You know, I was kind of curious. Like, I heard a lot of people like excited for the game and talking about that, you know, when it was in alpha, beta or whatever, it was a good game. But now that it's come out, I hardly hear anything about it. Nick Timoros, most of the sell-side banks and other Fed tip sheets have a baseline forecast where inflation slows in a way that the FOMC is done raising rates. Which is why the inflation numbers this week are, and then especially like the next two after that, will be super, super important, right? Like if they come out and we get higher than anticipated inflation in any of those next three reports, let's say, I think that the market will probably like absolutely flip. Reason.com, congressional Democrats have tried numerous times to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, they're back with an even bigger proposal, $17 an hour. Maybe, guys, just a thought. What do you think? I'm going to tell you what I think about this. You let me know what you think. Maybe in a period where we're concerned about inflation and we're concerned about wages rising too quickly, is not the best time to try and raise the federal minimum wage. Just, you know, just a thought. You know, this is one that I don't... Okay, why don't we hear about this more often? If I go to California or New York, stuff is so expensive compared to where I live in Utah and many other parts of the United States. It's very clear that these liberal policies make things more expensive. Why do people not talk about this? Like these other states have been raising minimum wage for a long time, and of course there's lots of different things that you could kind of blame on it, but you know, I would at the very least expect you know, some people on TikTok to be like, well, you see this policy, it makes everything more expensive. And then somebody else coming out and saying, well, maybe not exactly, here's some other factors that might be in play. Like, why don't we see that conversation? That seems like one of the biggest conversations we could be having. I don't get that. I get people on TikTok complaining about derivatives. So why is it that I can get so many people on TikTok complaining about derivatives and things like that, but not talking about the minimum wage was with that? Raymond Schroeder, good morning. I don't know, guys. The way that this is kind of looking so far this morning, it's kind of like looking like a normal slow Monday. And I'm usually a little bit more hesitant to get involved on a Monday unless I'm like seeing a clear trend out of the gate. Unless I see a clear trend out of the gate, it's usually better for me to sit on the sidelines because Monday trading is usually very difficult and there's not as much volume. Kind of looking to me like it's a whole new week. It could be summer trading taking in a little bit too. I mean, they're putting 1800s. That's not like terrible, but it's not good. Like we were at 2000s or points last week. Jordan Peterson complaining about debanking scandal. You know what? That one actually, I'm a little surprised by that one. That a bank in the UK was like, oh, we need to debank this person because they're like it's like a concern to us. Like I think that's so dumb. I don't think that anybody comes along and says like, oh, this guy has a checking account here that means that company is awful. Do people actually? Well, I guess people on the internet would do that, say that sort of a thing, wouldn't they? But if I saw that, I would just be like, well, that's stupid. You have to bank somewhere. And it's just a little wild to me that there are people at the banks willing to go along with that, because that just seems like a sure political loser in the long run. Like that basically, that's going to create a crisis that eventually comes to a head. And when I say crisis, really more of like a political, firestorm, sort of kind of like what's happening in the UK right now. Where eventually they will impose more requirements on you. And I think that if I was at the bank, I would kind of be saying like, nah, it's not worth playing with. Because I think that in the end we would lose, or the banks would lose from that sort of a thing, What? What? Nassim Taleb, a cyclist friend of mine, was hiking in the Blue Ridge Mountains with a weighted vest. Something great for the back and knees during steep descents, but particularly onerous during climbs. Someone asked him if he was connected to the Wagner Group. What? Nassim, buddy, I really like Nassim. He does not seem to be on the same. I think that he is in the end he's a diehard leftist. I think that you would be better off, my friend, not thinking about politics as much. I mean, most people are probably better off not thinking about politics too much, right? We've been lucky the past few years that there hasn't been as much focus or interest in the politics, and that's maybe a little bit better for our mental health. Of course, probably it's because, they don't want people to pay too much attention to the people in charge right now, and it might not stay that way for very long, huh? Yeah, because the whole Donald Trump impeachment can we call it like the third impeachment? That's what I feel like it is. It says they want to impeach him for January 6th, but he's not president anymore. That's what it is. And that's going to be a complete mess. Because it looks like they're going to go forward with it. It looks like they kind of want to. So somebody pointed this out. So this is kind of like a conspiracy theory sort of a thing. But when you look at the timetables and everything, it seems to match. They want to push this to trial as quickly as possible, which means that there will, whatever the outcome of it is, which I actually think, given the venue, unless Donald Trump is able to get a venue or judge change, I think that they will convict him. But it will happen so fast that he will have enough time to appeal. He'll have enough time to appeal that finding before the election. And so, and at the same time, he's going to use his subpoena power and everything else that he has to dig back up all of the concerns and questions around voter fraud in the election. So it's going to be like a huge mess. The media is going to be super interested in it. And everything that he comes out and says, they're going to be desperate to try and discredit, right? It's going to be a mess. So just warning ya. And what will the impact on the markets be? Well, it'll probably be a distraction for the markets, but the markets will be distracted probably. And I think another thing that you might start to see. This is something that I think should be a heads up for us. Okay. It's really looking like it's going to be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. I mean, I still think that the Republican primary could be more interesting than people anticipate. I actually think that the chances that Donald Trump wins the Republican primary are less than analysts in the market and betting markets are giving him right now, although probably still favored to win. Okay. Everybody thinks it's a foregone conclusion. I think that there's a minority cases a little bit more likely than anticipated, but it's more like a 55% chance that he wins instead of like a 70% chance that he wins, right? And so if it's Biden versus Trump, anything that happens that kind of suggests that Donald Trump's chances of winning have improved will probably be a boon for the market and vice versa. Something comes out that looks bad for Donald Trump's chances of being reelected, then you probably see the market sell. What are his chances of winning? Well, latest polls that we've gotten over the past week actually kind of suggest that not only would Donald Trump win the Republican nomination, but that he would beat Biden right now. Uzi says 0% chance that he win. Well, when you factor in shenanigans and stuff, maybe. Though there have been a couple of little changes. I think that's one of the things that has kind of flown under the radar, right? So there has been some changes in the electoral map that kind of favor Republicans, right? Let me see if I can get that. What was it? It's not like the end all be all of everything, but national redistricting landscape has changed substantially thanks to a new Republican drawn plan in Florida and a court-ordered remap of New York. Moreover, it's taken the 2021-2022 redistricting cycle from a clear win for Democrats to something far more ambiguous, perhaps best described as a preservation of the Republican-leaning status quo, and a ruling earlier this month striking down Louisiana's congressional map is another reminder that it ain't over till it's over. By other measures, the new map is better for Republicans. First, the tipping point congressional seat, i.e. the majority making 218th bluest and reddest seat in the House, is slightly more Republican-leaning. Under the old lines, the tipping point seat had a 538 partisan lean of R plus 2.3. Under the new ones, the tipping point will have a 538 partisan lean of 2.5. Again, assuming Louisiana's map is reinstated on appeal. That's for redistricting, but that's not for the presidential. I guess we need to go to 270 to win. Let's see here. I feel like my monitors are like not quite right. So this one seems like too... I have to turn my head too far to see it. Okay. This is what, 2024 electoral votes. These are the guesses. So I think Ohio and Iowa will definitely go red. They still have Wisconsin as a leaner, but I think that Wisconsin probably goes blue. So then it's like, it's still down. Now, Nevada, what was Nevada in 2020? Presidential election 2020 Nevada. Trump? Oh no, it was Biden. Who went Biden? Let's give Biden Nevada. I think you mean you want and we'll just leave it open. I think Trump's got an uphill battle, right? Well, so if he took Arizona and Georgia, North Carolina and Pennsylvania, then he wins. Right. But Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania are the three places where he lost, right? So he would have to shift over those three places. And yeah, I think that it's a tough pull for him. But again, the thing is the polling right now, in Wisconsin, Arizona. So I think you could put these in toss-ups. Like I think that right now at this stage we would definitely have to put them into toss-ups, right? But some of the the national polling suggests that things are becoming more favorable for Trump, right? And so really what we would have to do to really game this out is to see if we can find some polling for individual states. Real clear politics, election, national. See, here's like general election matchups, but really what we want to see is like, well, let's just come over here. So this polling suggests Trump by 34, right? National. Arizona. See, that only shows. Find any poll. Tri-state. Georgia. Oh, Georgia Trump versus Biden? They haven't pulled that in a long time. That's a little curious, isn't it? Pennsylvania Trump versus Biden, maybe? That looks more recent. Let's see here. Okay, that was in June. So in June, they had Trump up by +1 in Pennsylvania. So let's try Arizona. Jeez. This one was from what? April this year? Yes, that was from this year. They have him Biden +1. I would have thought that Arizona would be a little bit more favorable to Trump than it is there. It could be close. I don't know. So the way that some of the trends are going and stuff seem really favorable to Donald Trump. And I do kind of wonder if they impeach Donald Trump. Well, not impeach. If they convict Donald Trump of something and try to give him jail time, and then it is repealed on a sorry, what it is? Do we call it a repeal? It's challenged. It's challenged on appeal. There you go. It's challenged on appeal, and Trump wins. Then he could be a real force at that point, right? The way I'm kind of seeing things right now is like it's kind of even right now. And depending on what happens with Trump, it could kind of run one way or the other. Because I think that if Donald Trump were to get to the general election, like let's say the end of the summer 2024. So around this time, if we got to around this time and Donald Trump was still looking good, then at that point, I think he could run away from it. With it. He could run away with it. If it's as close as it is right now, Biden probably wins, right? Of course, the polling is going to not be very super accurate for us at this stage either, just because, number one, the polling doesn't really get too serious for the primaries until after Labor Day, right? And it's like the turnout models. I don't think that we really have any clue what the turnout is going to be like. Like, remember that it seemed like it was more the youth that kind of put Biden over the top. I kind of questioned if that'll happen again. I don't think that the youth are so hot on Biden anymore. It does kind of put things in perspective, though, that like, I mean, look, maybe they can run the PR campaign against DeSantis and they can get people to hate DeSantis as much as Donald Trump. But if it's that close with Donald Trump, you have to wonder if the Republicans can get somebody else in there, if the Republican wouldn't just run away with it. You know? I'm just saying. Oh, I need to reset this. So we're at 406, huh? You know, on the rates side, we can come back to what we're supposed to be doing here for a moment. 4% seems like a really good rate. Like if we were going to continue moving up on the treasuries and rates come back down a little bit, you know, 4% would have to be a target, right? So far the flows today have been to the long side. And I would say pretty persistently so. It's only a difference of about 10,000 so far since we've been, so it is still kind of a Monday. You have to question if you really want to get involved. But the buyers are in control. Definitely from a, you know, it's so interesting when I come and look at these, like, well, if we really zoom in here. I really think you look at the volume. It's to the upside. I guess this is, you know, when you look at prices to the upside. So this isn't a super great example, but you know, the volume tends to give you a better picture of who's actually in charge. What trading tool do I use? So all of the depth of markets on my screen are Jigsaw Day Trader. So that's the primary platform that I use. I am an affiliate for them, so I have an affiliate link in the video description. And then the charts, I'm using NinjaTrader right now. Might at some point in the future switch over to doing everything in Jigsaw, but for now, there's a couple of things that the NinjaTrader charts do, kind of with my custom indicators. So I stick over there. So on that note, back on these polls, it doesn't show me I should go to like the Trump versus Biden national. Find it. Here we go. General election, Trump versus Biden. No, I swear that there was one that had Biden up. That was recent. Well, this 8/1, this Insider Advantage 8/1 is the best we got, and it has Biden up 1. And then when you come over to DeSantis, oh, that one didn't do DeSantis. DeSantis polling much less frequently, but a little bit more of a spread. I swear I saw one that had Trump over Biden. I have to go and search. It must not be included. Well, so we came in here. When I came in here, we were like still around 30, right? So I definitely could have taken, could have made some from the long. I've done a lot of sitting through trends lately, right? But I'm still a little bit weary about trying to get in on this trend, man. Well, what time is this? 7:09. Now might be a time where you might be able to get some sort of an impulse. Still seems awfully sketchy to me. Not much on Twitter today. I'm always every time that I look at Twitter and I'm like, well, they seem kind of quiet this morning, right? And my first thought is like, oh, maybe Twitter's dying. Maybe everybody really doesn't like X. They're going somewhere else. Are they all? Is trading? Is there a bunch of trading Twitter type activity going on some other social network that I don't know about? I doubt it, but I can't stop that thought from reoccurring in my mind over and over again. Oh, okay. Here's an interesting story we should read. Oh no, Musk may need surgery ahead of fight with Zuckerberg. So do you guys still think that Mark Zuckerberg should be favored to win? I start a poll. Who would win in a fight? Zuckerberg, Musk. Let's not say in a fight. Who would win? Who would win? You all know what I'm talking about. They need lasers and swords. Fight to the death? No, let's not. Let's be civilized now. Let's be civilized. It's just an MMA match, right? I think that the thing is kind of interesting, but it's maybe turning out to be not so interesting. Because interesting would be Mark Zuckerberg is younger and probably more trained, but Elon Musk is much larger. You gotta realize that Zuckerberg is a small man. I'm larger than Zuckerberg. Okay, and I am thin. I am thin. Okay. Elon Musk is like 6'1". Elon Musk is a big guy. Size accounts for a lot. So if Elon Musk was able to train hard and get good training, I think he could beat Zuckerberg. But it's kind of sounding like Musk's health is just not good enough for him to actually really be doing this. You know? Like if he has to get neck and back surgery, are you kidding me? I'm getting an MRI of my neck and upper back tomorrow. May require surgery before the fight can happen. We will know this week. Okay. That you are even having to have your back looked at says to me that it's not going to happen. Like you probably shouldn't be doing something like that if you're inverse Kramer meme. Zuck would have a massive cardio advantage. I don't know. Like again, I'm actually, so when I come over and look at this, I'm surprised that Elon Musk is 85 kilos. So Elon Musk could put on a ton of muscle. If he was working out hard, he could probably put on a ton of muscle. Right? And he probably has not ever trained real hard. So that, because if you're 6'1", I would expect it to be more in the 90 kilo range. But Mark Zuckerberg being 70 kilograms? That means that if I trained, I might have a good chance at beating Zucker. That would probably be a more fair fight. But I would probably have the advantage in the fight. Except for that I don't do MMA. So that would be my disadvantage. But physically, I would have an advantage over him. And I'm a small guy. But that's the point I'm trying to make. So if you're taking a really, really small guy and you're putting him up against a monster. If Elon Musk was able to get his health in line and he had enough time to train, I think that he would slaughter Zuckerberg, even if he wasn't as good at the MMA and stuff like that. I think that the size, the arm reach and things like that would just be too dominant. But I don't know. That might be more of a reflection of my view of the world. Right? Because in my view of the world, I'm very much aware of where my limits are physically. Because I'm somebody I've been active my whole life. I've really pushed my body. But even with me pushing it as hard as I felt like I could, it's pretty underwhelming compared to what most people can that are physically gifted, Well, that's true. But that's where I'm getting to, okay, so if they had a fight today, Zuckerberg would almost certainly win, right? Okay. If they agreed to, let's say that Musk's health is all in order and everything, and they had it in a month, let's say, okay, I think Zuckerberg probably still wins, right? The further out it gets, though, the more time that you give Elon Musk to train, I think the more that it would favor him. Yeah, but he's not. Well, let's see here. Musk is in his 50s, right? 52. Mark Zuckerberg is 39 though. Here's the thing. They're both kind of over the hill. Musk has about 10 years on Zuckerberg. They're both pretty old. Right. I don't know. I suppose that one argument that you might be able to make, though, is that it seems to me that Musk has not been very active his whole life. And so he may just be too old for him to catch up, you know? He may just be too old to catch up. Yeah, I don't know if a year would be enough, basically. But the size, I mean, let me put it this way. The size difference between the two of them is so extreme that you would never be organizing a fight like this under normal circumstances, right? Because like, seriously, if Musk like had them, you know, was in shape, he would probably be in the 90 kilos. He would have, you're talking about having like 40 or 50 pounds on a guy. That's a massive, you know, that's like you got to be concerned about. Musk just has to get one really good hit in and Zuckerberg would be TKO, you know? But I can see myself kind of shifting that. I don't think that Musk would have enough time to catch up. Because just I know that for myself, it is so much more difficult to recover compared to when I started weightlifting. Like, I really have to be careful about how hard I push my nervous system and things like that. Because I can really burn myself out. And then you get sick or something like that, and then all of your training efforts are for naught, right? So it doesn't make sense to like totally burn myself like I used to, unless it's like for the competition or something, you know what I mean? And that's where I was coming back with this thing that like I can be pretty stubborn, but what would be a situation where I would be motivated enough to do anything super crazy like that in physicality right now? I don't think it would ever happen. But the recovery difference between me at, what am I, 38? Between now that I'm 38 and when I started, like 26, is like and crazy. And it's been particularly bad since COVID, although I think that as of late it's gotten better. It seems to me, not giving medical advice here, but just my experience was that COVID absolutely hurts like your endurance and stuff like that, and makes it more difficult to recover. And then there's kind of this period where that you just have to push through. Like if you push your body and you're getting there and eventually it goes away. You have to fight through it. And the other big issue I have is salts. Like, I have to drink Gatorade every day, even if I'm not actively working out. I'm not getting enough salt in my diet or something. But then after that, I can work out pretty well. I can do my workouts and I'm fine. So, because the workouts that I do are pretty hefty. You know, they're for competition, and I don't know how this ended up happening, but most of the people on my weightlifting team are girls, and the girls can handle a little bit more volume than the guys can. Like that is to say, when you're designing a training program, you know, a weightlifting program for a competition, I would err on prescribing a little bit more volume for the ladies than for the men. because for the men, it takes a little bit more to recover because there's more muscle mass. So, yeah, the volume that we do when we're like, especially now, is like crazy. But how much do I weigh? I weigh 76. I think they changed. What did they change the weightlifting classes to? Every couple of years they will adjust the weight classes. So it used to be 76. I think it's 73 now. And I had a hard time trying to get myself below that 73. Yeah. It's 73. No, I don't even know what I am in pounds. I don't even have a pounds scale anymore. You know, this is a funny thing. I with metrics and stuff like that. Okay, so like when you're doing scientific computations and stuff like that, it's a lot easier to use metrics. Okay, cool. I don't think it really matters too much on those sorts of things. Like, what is the official government use? And because you can use metric if you want to for your particular use case. You know, like NASA, there are some situations where they use metric. Right? No big deal. Okay. So you can choose to, I'm kind of the mind that like each individual person can choose to favor whichever measurement they want, right? Okay, well, so when it comes to temperature, I think that Fahrenheit is just objectively superior for most people's use case. Fahrenheit gives you a much better idea of how comfortable the temperature is for a person, because 100 is too hot and 0 is too cold. And that's, you know, it's very easy to know relatively how hot is hot, right? Whereas with like if you're used to Celsius and I teach you about Fahrenheit, you can get a pretty good idea of how hot is hot with Fahrenheit, right? Whereas if you're used to Fahrenheit and I try and teach you how hot is hot in Celsius, you're not going to remember it. You're just not, because the numbers just don't make sense. They don't fit very well, right? Okay. It's the opposite with weight. I laugh. I laugh at all of these bodybuilders that they, you know, when I talk about, okay, how much do you lift? Like I can squat 155 kilos. And they're like, why don't you just talk pounds? I'll tell you why. Because pounds are just not as good of a measurement when you're going and doing weightlifting. Like when you're weightlifting, okay, the bar is 20 kilos. Most people, you're going to, like if you're going to do a clean and jerk, you're going to start at the very least at 50 kilos, right? So 50 kilos is like warm-up weight, right? 100 kilos is a decent amount to clean and jerk. That's kind of on the upper end of what I can clean and jerk. And then like 200 kilos is like, whoa, okay. Now you're getting into really big stuff, right? Everything like you lift and then you want to go up, right? Add 5 to 10 kilos. It makes like all of the numbers just fit so well when it goes with kilos. And when you go over to pounds, like all of the weights that you're using are like crazy numbers. It's like it's 135, you know, they don't make any sense at all. And they're hard to remember, right? Like if I go to an Olympic weightlifting competition, those people can look at the colors on it and they can tell you exactly how much is on there, right? Very quickly. I mean, within seconds, they can tell you how much weight is on there. If I go to a CrossFit competition and they have the colored weights on there, but they're using pounds, it will take them longer for them to tell me how much weight is on the bar, because they still have to count it because the weights are like weird numbers. Whereas in metric and in kilos, all of the numbers that you end up using end up being really clean, easy to add together numbers. right? 10, 20, 25 kilos versus 35, 45, 55. Doesn't make any sense. So yes, I 100% use kilos, and I'm around 76. Yeah. And I'm 5'9", which I guess is really heavy for 5'9", but I'm, like I said, I'm really thin though. And I don't know where I put all the weight. So there's definitely people that are like smaller than me and bigger, like muscle wise. Like they might be a little bit shorter than me. No, not a little bit. They'll be the same height as me. Way more muscle, same weight. How does that work? I must be hiding a lot of visceral fat and not realize it. But oh, 70 is 5'9" is not little. 5'9" is average, and 76 kilos is actually a little bit on the overweight side, actually. Right? Let me see here. BMI. Five 5'9", and let's see here. And do it a little exact here. 76 times 2.2, 167. That puts me at 24.7, which is just barely not overweight. So that's where it's weird, is I am small, but it's not because of my height or my weight. Right? My height and my weight are average. They are exactly average. If you look at the average and you look at the medium, I'm like exactly there. A little bit heavier than the average. Where I'm small is like my wrist. My wrist is very small. Average in American is small? No. Not well for heights. This is one of the things that drives me crazy, is that there are so many people out there that have this impression about what is an average height. And people seem to think that like average height is 5'11", 6 foot, right? And it is not at all. In fact, when you at 6 foot, you're in like the top 20 percentile, if not top 10 percentile. Average height in the US is 5'9", and well, let's go find average by country. Yeah, equity's just open there, and they're buying. Yeah, there's got to be like a picture here. Images. Okay, so there's the United States at okay, so there are some countries like Serbia and Sweden that they get close to the 6 foot mark. Those ones don't give you numbers, so that one's probably not the best picture. But anyways, I'm telling you, it's like a cultural thing. In the United States, if you ask the average person what is average male height, especially if you asked women, they would almost certainly give you a number that is higher than the average. I would say that 90% of people will guess a number higher than average, unless they like explicitly know, like they've researched this and they explicitly know the number. Okay, but if you ask somebody that doesn't know the number and you ask them to guess, they're almost certainly going to say something over 5'9", which is the average. So I don't know why that is, but it's like this cultural thing that we've been culturally conditioned to think that men are taller than they actually are. Well, the difference between an average guy and a big guy is huge, right? You know, like you got a guy that's 6'1". He's gonna dominate most other men in a fight. That's just the way it is. Because you sit and you think about it, and you're like, okay, 5'9" to 5 to 6 foot is like 3 inches, right? Yeah, 3 inches. Okay, so that 3 inches shouldn't be that big of a difference. No, it's a huge difference. 3 inches. 3 inches is a huge difference. In terms of like the amount of power, the muscle difference and the amount of power that you're going to be able to generate, 3 kilos is huge, right? Because your average 5'9" guy is going to be in the 70, between 72 and 85 kilo range, right? You're going to get those 6 foot guys, they're going to be in the 85 to 92 range, if not more than that. 85 is, I'd say, quite thin for a 6 foot man. But the amount that they're going to lift is like so much higher. It's so much higher. Here, let's see if I can find that Olympic weightlifting records by weight class. That image is just the weight classes. Where's the records? No. No. Sure, there we go. Okay, so when you look at like the total, like just look at clean and jerk, because clean and jerk is kind of a better measure of like overall just like strength, you know? The record for 73 kilo is 198. Okay. The record for a 96 kilo guy is 225. Okay. So that's 28 kilo difference. That's like 50 pounds. That's a significant amount. You know, that's a whole other plate. when you get to the really big guys, their biggest is 265. So it's almost 65 kilos more. And that's at the top level. I think when you look at the average person, it's an even bigger gap, because I would say that like a good clean and jerk for a guy like at a local level is like 120 kilos. Whereas I've seen some of the 96 kilo guys get up into the 200s. Well, maybe more like 180 or 190. It's been a while, so I don't know if I remember very well. Work the legs? Nah. I've kind of dabbled in martial arts sorts of things, but I've never really gotten serious into it. Okay, so we've been going sideways here in the treasuries for a while now. I am seeing the flows flip around and coming in short now, especially in the 5-year. So that says to me that although we missed out on that upside, that staying out was ultimately the correct decision. Is there enough now that the flow is going short to justify going in short? I'm going to say no. I think that it's probably still kind of a crapshoot. Probably somebody will make money, but I think it's really hard to guess what it's going to be at the moment. Is there a way to access expired ES or NQ contracts in NinjaTrader 8 market replay for? Well, okay, so you can save and give your replays to other people. So if you can go and find it, you can find the previous contract. But I'm not a huge fan of the replay. Like, what you get when you run it through replay isn't really like in terms of like you use market replay to come in and like practice scalping on the DOM, doesn't work very well. You're probably better off. Well, I mean, that's kind of why we have this channel, is you're better off just watching the replay on the video and reading the order flow that way. But for back testing, you know, this is the other thing, is if you're just doing your standard technical analysis kind of indicator soup sort of an strategy, you just the normal data will be fine. It's not until you want to like do stuff with the book that like market replay would make sense. And even then, at that point, I think that it would be better for you to just save the data yourself and run it through Python at that point. So man, Zero Hedge has just been putting on a lot of articles lately suggesting that inflation is coming back. I would always expect, I mean, has there ever been a time where Zero Hedge hasn't warned about inflation? Yeah. They were right about the inflation when we had it, though. But it just seems like they are particularly pushing that right now. So they really think that it's coming back. Let's see here. Is this one short enough? I'll read this one, okay? Friday's job data sparked a relief rally in bonds after a flatter yield curve, but the pain trade is still higher for yields and a steeper curve. The lesser spotted bear steepener with this week's CPI a potential catalyst. Last week was a turbulent one for bonds, but the continued softening in payrolls data served to remind the market that supply and fiscal profligacy fears, did I say that word correctly? Have to be counterbalanced with an economy that is in its late cycle stages. After the data, 10-year yields took the elevator. I'm having a hard time reading this because like they're saying words opposite of what I would normally. Okay, after the data, 10-year yields took the elevator back down to sub 405 after briefly going above 4.2%. They have since clambered back to 4.12, But their next cue is likely to come from Thursday's CPI report. Headline is expected to nudge back up to 3.3 from 3% last month, mainly due to base effects, and core is expected to hold steady at 4.08. Still, stronger than expected data probably means higher yields in a market more acutely alert to inflation and therefore supply risks. As with last week, term premium would likely drive the move, meaning a curve steepening. In other words, the 30 years will sell off harder. Implicit positioning of speculators from the COT report shows that there is a heavy skew to a flatter curve. Oh, interesting. So they're more short the 5s than they are the 30s. The negative carry for most flatteners remains punitive. For 2s versus 10s, it's 83 basis points over a year. Oh, that is a lot. But the large upside potential from supply inflation worries and the covering of positions begins to make that look less insurmountable. Finally, the Bundesbank's decision to stop paying interest on domestic government deposits, which initially pushed short German bonds higher this morning, highlights the broader issue of central banks paying interest on reserves when they are superabundant. In the days of QE and zero interest rates, the ECB and Fed et al. Remitted money to the treasuries from the income on their bond portfolios. But now that is reversed as bond income is dwarfed by the cost of paying interest on trillions of bank reserves. Take the Fed, whose debt to the treasury is now accruing over $2 billion each week. This is something that will become more politically contentious, especially as economies continue to slow and cost of living pressures bite further. Interesting. Explosion rocks Turkish port full of grain. Oh dear, what's this about? Thought of explosion thought to be grain dust. Oh, that is a pretty. That is a relatively mild explosion, but I suppose grain dust might make sense. It looks like there was a fire. Treasury's still kind of on the higher end here. Oh, and the 5-year pushing new highs, in fact. I did not catch that one. That's interesting. And the S&P 500, after an initial little bit of buying, has turned south here. This video is not of the explosion, it's just of fire afterwards, I guess. This other article is a little longer, so I won't read it now. I'll read it after the stream. Anthony Crudelli thinks that the market is boxed in on a two-way tape, although that's all 100% technical analysis. He is perhaps right, though, that we have moved from a market where the bulls are firmly in control to a market where it can go both ways. That's certainly true. I keep looking at this like we're waiting for something, and I'm just realizing like, no, nothing's happening today, Seth. So, ugh. I'm not really seeing on this slight little move higher. I'm not really seeing like a real driver like we normally would from the currencies or anything. What I'm seeing instead is a little bit of equity selling and perhaps a flight to safety. So that is very, very curious to me. I can't shake this feeling that like we're anticipating something to happen here. And like the market is kind of giving me this look like it thinks something is going to happen. Even though I kind of feel like that little push higher might have been, it may have been a stop out or it may have been a head fake. Things kind of, excuse me. Things kind of seem to be like turning back down quickly. I just can't explain this feeling. It's like that anticipatory anxiety. Maybe it's just me. You guys feeling anything? The level 2 activity looks pretty uninteresting. Bored? Yeah, maybe my mind is just inventing things. I don't know. Oh, by the way, we had that poll here. We should... Oh, you know what? That poll with 9 votes. Only 9 of you voted? Well, 56% says Zuckerberg still. That's like way closer than I thought it would be. We missed the move? Yeah, I think so. Well, nah. I don't really feel like that what we missed was all that special. I mean, yeah, it was a move and there was a potential to make money, but I'm not really looking at that as like a... Oh, yeah, there was an opportunity to predict flows there. We weren't in the know. That was definitely the case on Friday, right? I came in and I said, I looked at these numbers and I'm like, well, I'm not 100% sure how this ends up shaking out in the end. It seems a little bit too on the edge for me to really make a strong trade here. And the piece of information that I really should have been factoring in, that I could have, but I did not, was how overly positioned short everybody was in the treasuries, and so we ended up getting a short covering rally. But like, okay, so we had a short covering rally. Okay, that's over. Now what? That doesn't tell me anything about what's going to happen next. And there was a little bit of a move. There doesn't appear to be any clear catalyst for it. It was just kind of a random move. So I shouldn't get too, I shouldn't be thinking too much about, oh, I missed that move, because it's just a random move. We don't want to catch all the moves. We only want to catch the moves that we can predict. Let's see if it actually comes back. They're a little bit of a kind of a like a fall back, but they didn't like come all the way back, so the pressure could still be there. You guys been following this LK99 thing? That's something worth talking about. So my recollection on this is that there was like these two guys that they kind of created this material like 10 years ago, but it was kind of a fluke and they don't know what they did, and they spent all of this time trying to reproduce it. And then because of COVID, they were basically able to get the funding to be able to try and recreate it. So they started doing so, and they weren't having much success until they kind of made a mistake where, you know, the thing that the case that they were building it in that was a vacuum cracked and allowed impurities in and created, you know, tainted the sample essentially. And that's how we got the thing that we had. Well, then there was this other guy that was kind of brought in to be more of a, like a, I don't know. He hadn't contributed very much is basically the gist of it, but he wanted to take credit for it. The other guys didn't want to take credit. It seemed like they didn't completely understand, like it wasn't a very good recipe. And they wanted to keep the, you know, they wanted to make the money for it, you know, so they were kind of holding back on revealing it to the world so that when they did reveal it to the world, they could, you know, they could fully take advantage of it and get as rich as possible from it, you know. But this other guy was coming in and trying to take the credit, and so that's why they ended up publishing early. So now it's in this really weird state where, number one, you've got people all around the world trying to recreate it, and it sounds like that they are, although there's maybe another way of synthesizing it, maybe that will be better. We'll see. Nobody's confirmed that it's a room temperature superconductor yet, though. Only that they can get it to float. And it's just like this huge race. This is not what it would normally be like because of that. But then on top of that, I'm starting to see this conspiracy theory bent to it. Like, people are saying that that news about LK99 is being suppressed. I'm not convinced, but I'm seeing a lot of people try to say that now. I think the reality is probably that people aren't as interested in it as they are, because there's still all of this weirdness around it. But so I was just reading this thing here. The current recipe cannot create proper LK99 in the middle. He says the most reasonable solution is chemical vapor deposition. It is easier to patent a process than it is to patent a material. Someone improves on their recipe, but without making considerable changes, they won't be able to apply for a patent. Oh wow, a mentor died and asked in their will that they start working on it again. Wow. And it was 24 years. This whole story is just weird. It's just a weird story. Very interesting story. But we still aren't 100% sure that it's really the room temperature superconductor that everybody says. The vice president of Kentech, the only institute with samples from Q Center, admitted that there are some hidden details to make LK99. We will hold a public presentation of the verification results and theoretical system in late August/early September. In an official from the Quantum Energy Research Institute, the developer of LK99 said in a phone call with this reporter on the 6th. Collaborator of the Quantum Energy Research Institute acknowledged that it is difficult to make the exact same material using the same recipe. LK99 is a ceramic compound, which is similar to firing pottery, said Park Jin-ho, vice president of Korea Institute of Energy Technology, which is collaborating with the institute. Just as firing pottery produces completely different pottery, even when using the same ingredients, there are definitely know-how of the company that cannot be captured in the paper. In other words, the most accurate test to the reproducibility of LK99 is using a sample from that company of LK99. Okay, wait, so we did come down to back to 111 evens. The flows are definitely turned to the short side. Looks like maybe we could have made a basis point off of that. Put in the work. Hello, all. I've always watched YouTube videos of guys who became rich because they put in the work. What are all the steps or work of what type they refer to? Reading the news, tracking the stocks, etc. I'm willing to put in the work, but what type of work are there? You know, this is something that I had always wondered as well, but I think that now today I have the answer. Because I think there's two sides of it. One side of it is that if you want to get into the quantitative research on this stuff, you're really talking about graduate level university graduate level mathematics and concepts and stuff. And you're having to learn all of that and do it all on your own, which is a lot of work. Okay. And we're talking years of work to understand these sorts of things. Okay. So that's the first side of it. The second side of it is that because the market is more statistically efficient than it is informationally efficient, that means that informational content is a more available and abundant source of edge. So you're going to want to read all of the news and analysis and these sorts of things every day to keep up on what is going on in the market, what are the major narratives, what kind of trades are people placing in, to know what's going on enough to be able to predict the flows in certain situations, right? That's a lot of work as well. So that's what people mean by putting in the work. Because yeah, if the work was just learn how to identify a head and shoulders pattern and then trade it, that's not work, right? You learn the one thing and then you're done. And the thing that they teach you is like you can learn in 20 minutes. That's not the work. There you go. If you want to make big money trading, stop watching retail traders who have never traded on behalf of a client, get licensed, and go and work for a broker dealer. Yep. Yep. Leave that one up. r/Wall Street Bets says today, mortgage rates at its highest in 23 years. Don't worry you, it's all priced in. Hey Gary, are you? I think we're having an okay morning. The market seems a little sleepy today. In fact, I would say the market kind of appears to me to be like still a little hungover from Friday, yeah? I'm definitely at the place of like, well, that was a pretty big move on Friday, kind of disrupted things. I'm not really sure what the next step is, where they go next. I'm kind of waiting for something to happen or somebody to kind of lead the way in what the next set of steps are, and it doesn't seem to be happening. In fact, I'm even maybe wondering if we maybe just kind of chill here and most of the week until CPI. Could be the case. So I'm kind of itching to like take big trades, but nah. Oh man. Also, I feel like this 111 even is kind of starting to become a little bit of a magnet, you know? Like they kind of paused there a little bit on the way up. Now they're kind of pausing there on the way down. Whose music is this? So this is streambeats.com. It's a Spotify playlist. Stream Beats by Harris Heller. And this is the 100 Thieves Hype Tracks playlist. They have multiple playlists. Yeah, this guy is basically a millionaire now because of this set of music. He lives here in Utah, so I feel like I should support a fellow Utahn. I was like, you know, we fought against putting the music on for a long time because, like, every time I did a poll about it, people were kind of like, I'd rather not. But kind of what I found was that, like, when we started playing the music, nothing changed. And it actually did kind of help to have the vibe. So I stick to the 100 Thieves track list. But yeah, I think it's worked out pretty well. Kind of wished that I had started doing that sooner. Basically. Gives a way to calm the tension. So something that we were saying before you came in here, Gary, is like the market looks pretty dead to me. But I'm having one of those inklings that like we're anticipating something or like there is tension there. And I don't know why I'm feeling that because everything that I actually am seeing from the market suggests that this is just a lazy Monday, you know? The S&P 500, by the way, a little messier than usual, yeah? Bit of 10 points sell, 10 points buy, but now since then it's just going back and forth across that range quite quickly. Like in 5-minute bars, you just get like really big 5-minute bars. The short end of the curve is massively volatile. If 10 hits 4.5, well, they were really far away from 4.5. But we were just reading an article on Zero Hedge that suggested that the positioning was very much a flattener, and that there would be a lot of pain, if things continued to steepen. So I certainly would be on the lookout for a bear steepener, which is to say, a move down where the 30-year leads the way. Yes, like we saw on Friday. I think that Friday was pretty painful for certain players. That seems to be the pain trade. Maybe a little bit of steepening overall today, but not really seeing a whole lot of interesting action. One could argue that the move off of these highs was maybe a small meta order. But now that they've touched 111, it's been really quiet again, right? Starting to feel a little sleepy. Hopefully listening to me isn't making you guys sleepy today. What's this from Joseph Wing? Treasury's new buyback program is set to start next year. This post reviews the operational details disclosed, discusses the problems it aims to solve, and suggests that it has potential to become an important tool for managing financial conditions. Indexing capital gains to inflation has been discussed. Can't have that. No, makes too much sense. Jimmy Oreo was having this conversation about that. If you didn't really make money on your stocks when you account for taxes and inflation for a lot of people. GDI is slowing down. If UPY rate gets to 4.3, then cuts come. Certainly, I always kind of thought that there was going to be like a certain interest rate that if we touched that interest rate, it would be like chaos sort of a thing. I think that kind of take was wrong in retrospect. It seems like that there is a point at which investor behavior changes, but it's kind of like a subtle, slow over time thing. Because it's not like, if it crosses that point, it could only be at that point for a few days and then come back down, for instance. So, it seems, though, that like 4% is not enough to make like the market just like completely lose its mind. But maybe 4.5% or 5% is. I don't know if we're anywhere close to that at the moment, but if we're looking above us, I think 4.5 is certainly a place to look. But again, it depends. These next 3 CPI reports are going to be really important. Because if there's any signs of inflation rising again in these next 3 reports or so, their market is going to flip its lip. Because I think that people put in a lot of margin and so forth to get the markets to where they are. Like, would not take very much to fall back down. The higher rates take time due to the, well, okay, but that comes back to this other thing that people have been talking about, right? Where they've been saying that, like, interest rates don't do it anymore. Something, you know? Like, because so many companies already took out the debt, the changing the interest rates doesn't actually have that much of an impact on the economy. And it certainly seems to me that there is some truth to that like the lagged effect that we're not seeing that, because if we were getting the lagged effect, we really should be like moving into a recession right now, right? But all of a sudden the indications kind of suggest that that's not what's happening. I think instead it seems more likely to me, and I think that there's some good evidence to support this that I've seen, that markets priced in the correct interest rate almost immediately, and that ever since then financial market, financial conditions rather, have been easing a little bit. So I don't know if the lag thing matters. I don't know if but I do think that there is a certain level. So there's kind of always this thing that, like, well, raising interest rates, that should make conditions tighter, but maybe it's a specific interest rate that matters too, that, like, it won't matter until you get over a certain interest rate. I think that both are maybe true to some extent. I think that raising the rates does have the impact of making credit tighter, okay? But I also think that there seems to be certain levels at which investor behavior changes. And it's somewhere around between 4 and 5%. Seems to me. Man, so it's only been about 20 minutes. I'm still feeling sleepy. We are coming back up, though. Not seeing a huge shift in the flows to accompany that, but the Japanese yen is doing it, and it looks like they are all following the lead. They're doing it all together. I don't really see any interesting tweets or anything, but Andrew Tate is tweeting a bunch this morning. There was that little bit of movement up, but it's flat again at 30. Ameribor is 5.52. That's what banks pay to lend back and forth. Fed couldn't hike to a rate of 5 to 5.75 if inflation didn't come down or remain sticky. Oh sure, yeah. If the recent trends in interest rates continue, then the Fed will absolutely have to maybe even reduce rates. Yeah. But there's been this whole thing of like, do you need to have a recession to resolve things? I don't think that you have to have a recession to resolve inflation, but I do believe that you need to have a recession to resolve the current situation, because it's not just inflation, right? The government has been spending a lot. Joe Biden has been stimulating the economy, is what it comes down to. Joe Biden has been stimulating the economy. And I think that we're kind of a little vulnerable, that if things did turn south, that they could do so very, very quickly. That if inflation came back, that you could see interest rates rise quickly and the market could collapse, because there's a lot of debt out there. I wouldn't say it's one of the things I've seen is that people say consumer debt are at all-time levels. Yes, but not compared to their income. But it is still a lot of debt, and people might want to, I don't think that they want to load up on debt here with these high rates. But they may need to. Because right now it seems like people are just like most people are barely keeping their head above water. Like a lot of consumers have really got hit hard by this, so they can't handle another hit like that. So like something that I've seen in my own community over the last month or so is I remember times where the like secondary markets for like selling furniture and things like that, secondhand market in my city was like really active, and I could go and buy and sell lots of things every day. And now it's like if you list something, there's like no activity on it. It's just all of the sudden, all at once, everybody like pulled back on buying anything like that. So there's something's definitely happening in our economy, right? I don't know if it much. Well, they're still they're floating up a little bit. I should maybe try and keep track of this a little bit better. I'd say the liquidity is a little better than it was when we started. Oh, now Zero Hedge pointing out Jeff Curry is leaving Goldman. Well, but it's not just the 2021 stimulus, though, Gary. Apparently, the government outlays have been higher than they were supposed to be. Just search for stealth stimulus. Basically, the contention, and this is coming from people at the Wall Street Journal and some other places, is that Biden has been continuing to stimulate. Like, we all thought that, like, you know, the 2020, 2021 stimulus was gone and was no longer pushing us. But now they're saying that actually there's been more stimulus and we just haven't kind of been paying attention. Tyson Foods plunges as earnings fall short amid waning meat demand. See what I mean? Like, I'm getting some signs that people are like pulling back on things. Well, okay, you're not talking about the interesting thing. Should we pull out this? Maybe you're not aware of this article. I don't know. It was JP Morgan. JP Morgan on the U.S. deficit and how it is supporting the economy made points from their note. The FY23 deficit is tracking about $1.5 trillion, but only thanks to the odd accounting of student debt forgiveness. Excluding student debt, the deficit would be closer to $1.8 trillion and almost $1 trillion larger than in the fiscal year of 2022. This widening should partly reverse as we move into 2024, when we project a deficit of around 1.6 trillion. This year's, quote, stealth stimulus may help explain the economy's resilience to rapid interest rate hikes. Right? So, the narrative that I've seen out there, and even that I would say that I promoted to some extent, was that after 2021, or 2022 rather, that the stimulus was gone. That the only thing that was remaining that was stimulus was student debt forbearance, right? But now what we're finding is that no, the government is still spending a lot of money somewhere, right? So I think that this is why I think that there's still a lot of concern over like inflation coming back hard, right? Is because like they're basically saying, you know, like this whole like first half of the year recession sort of narrative that we had going, that actually that should have happened, but it didn't happen because A, there was this stealth stimulus they were talking about, and B, the Federal Reserve injected liquidity into the system because of the regional banking crisis. And so like we were starting to get the recession, quote unquote, and it kind of got short circuited when the Federal Reserve was forced to step in and assist the regional banks. Right? So wouldn't that mean then at this point that inflation coming back should be a real concern if we're spiking the markets more than they should be? Right? it would be natural to see that if some of the things supporting the market up, like the strong consumer, were to go away, that we could slip into that recession scenario very, very easily. And there's a couple of kind of really subtle signs out there that suggest this may be starting. Not enough that I think it destroys the bull case or anything, but like they're out there and the market is starting to take note of them. Or another way we could put it out, do we need a recession? Well, so what I had said earlier is, I don't think that you need a recession to resolve an inflation problem, but I am starting to think that the way that this current market ends will be in a recession. It's just, it might take a way longer to get there than we all anticipate. You know what I mean? So I would not hedge my portfolio in that scenario. I would not hedge my portfolio until it became really clear that that's what was happening, right? Like, say we came in, like CPI this week came out and it was like spot 6 or something like that, when we're expecting a spot 3 or spot 4, right? Then that would be like the beginning of that scenario, and I would maybe hedge, you know? Maybe that sort of a thing. But like, the whole thing is like, weird things can kind of come. Like, you can have a scenario that's set out and you can be completely right about this scenario, that given current conditions, that this is the trajectory that the market is likely to take and that it's likely to end in a recession, right? But then something can happen along the way that can short circuit that scenario. And all it takes is one thing, right? With which instruments? Now that's really tough, Lucas, because, well, so in that scenario, I think you would want to buy the dollar, because that's kind of what happened, right? With the inflation, is everything got hammered except for really the dollar, right? The dollar was the one place, which is kind of not what I would have thought would happen. I know, right? That doesn't make any sense, but that was the winner that year, right? Everybody was going short the dollar, and then it rose up above 100 with vengeance, you know? But I think that if something like that happens, you know, you probably won't be able to just like hedge it, like, unless you're just outright going short some things, right? Like you've got some good short positions in certain stocks, because otherwise, you know, because everything got man, what is the word that I'm looking for here? Trash. Just everything got trashed that year, right? Everything got trashed in 2022. Yeah. But as for why the dollar rose during all of that and is probably likely to rise again is kind of a little weird and counterintuitive, right? But it just seems to be the way that the flows go, is that people take their money out of the assets and put them back into dollars. And that's why it was so economically destructive, you know? Like, honestly, I really think that we should consider 2021 like a recession. You know, this comes back to my, like, this longer term theory I've had, that our old definition of a recession isn't really very useful for us. And that, you know, every time that we have these huge market declines off of, you know, big economic dramas, that those would normally be recessions in the past. And the only reason that they're not is because of the very low interest rate policy and the overall changes in the financial system. And so I think that you kind of have to adjust your benchmarks a little bit. It's like they touched the 05, but they're still kind of fallen. Hello, Francesco. I feel like that the longer run kind of plays though are still very difficult for me to see. Yeah. You think it's a dead cat market? I mean, earnings were okay though, right? Why is your tree? Well, I pretty much set out on Friday. On Thursday, I had a little loss. So it's kind of been like choppy sideways P&L on my account for the past few weeks, but so I wouldn't say good or bad, just maybe frustrating. But I haven't taken anything today, and I skipped out on Friday. I really did not see that short covering rally in the treasuries coming. Was just like the positioning of all the CTAs and everything being short was just not something on my mind. So missed that one. There's that AC finally turning on. I think my sleep I didn't really get to bed until a little bit later than I would like it to yesterday. And I'm feeling the tired. Yeah, after non-farms, yeah. That buying in the treasuries was really massive, right? Yeah. No trading for you today? Well, no, it's not unfortunate. It's a Monday. It's good. Why ruin the beginning of the week with trading? Right? Mondays are often quiet, right? There tends to be a little bit less activity on Monday than other days of the week. And I think you're often better off just not trading them. Unless there's like a clear trend forming that on that day, right? Friday was great. Managed to get in on Bund. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, I really should have taken the short, but it was like, on the initial move, I was like, so that was the frustrating thing is like there was the initial move and it came all the way back. And I was like, well, based on the news and everything else, I'm not really sure what the flows do from here or if they do anything. And then they started going long and I was like, oh, well, I missed it. That's what they did. I've missed it now. But it just kept going and going and going, right? I should have known that it was one of those short covering kind of benders. I really should have, but it didn't even cross my mind until it was really way too late. So, like, I think that one didn't even stop. I think that was like a full trend day, wasn't it? Let me check here. Yeah, it was a legit full trend day, so I could have taken it anytime. No, Uzi's been here. We've been talking a little bit. We were talking about the Elon Musk versus Zuckerberg fight again, right? So I was saying, well, Zuckerberg is a lot bigger than him, but I think that, Musk is a lot bigger, but I think that Musk would need more time to train than he will probably get. He's probably just not in good enough health. The point I was trying to get to with that one, and I kept getting distracted and being super ADHD about it, but the point I was trying to get to that one is I don't think the fight's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, the supposed MMA match between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. No, it's not going to happen. I think that Elon Musk is not really serious when he promotes it. I think that he's just trying to generate traffic and interest, but I don't think he is in a good enough health to do it.
because he was saying, well, we're getting an MRI of my back, right? And then we'll see. So like your back is bad enough that you have to get an MRI of it, but then you're going to go and pick up training and do an MMA fight? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I really don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, it's clickbait. But it's still an interesting, I think, matchup just because Elon Musk is so much larger than him. And I think that people underestimate how much that factors in. Tried Dark Souls 3. Ugh. I don't think that's a game I can ever see myself getting into. Yeah, you hated it. You know, I don't really, I'm not really into games where it's like all memorization, you know? It seems like some people, they really like these games. Like one that really drives me crazy is these fighting games that really favor long combos. Like, I think that practicing long combos is kind of fun, but like long combos in the actual game is boring. You think they want to tag that big old order at 107 evens in the 5-year? Octavius? You might be right. It certainly seems like the 5-year is driving a little bit more than the others. Like the steepening is definitely visible today, right? It's very subtle, but it's definitely there. You know what though, lately it's been a while since there was a game. So there was the new Sonic game, Sonic Frontiers. That was great. I enjoyed playing that. I'll occasionally play Tetris, but you know, I used to be into shooting games. I haven't been interested in a shooter in a long time, and I don't know if I ever will again, to be honest with you. Oh man, Michelle Obama is a big, strong lady. I think that she would probably beat most of the, yeah. Again, it always all comes down to like, if you're all like training for it. You know, there's a difference between like training for an MMA match and like you just randomly meet somebody in the street. But yeah, I don't, you know. Because you're going to have two people that are both at least like reasonably trained for it, right? And that's why I think that like you know, your genetics end up playing a really major factor in there, right? You just can't compensate for the weight class imbalances and the age imbalances. Of course, we're talking about old people. You know, this is like something that we just don't realize and think about. Like most of these Hollywood A-listers, like the actors that really get like the big bucks and everything these days are old. They're all old. I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3 last night, and one of the funniest parts I thought was when Star-Lord is like, no, people on Earth, they only live to be like 50. And the other character is like, are you going to die soon? And he's like, no, I'm not almost 50. Well, Chris Pratt is 44, so he actually is pretty close. Right? Most of these people are their late 40s or 50s before we even like get to know them. Can you believe that? And then especially politicians. These politicians are 50s, 60s. It's just the way it is. I'm really concerned about the ageism sort of a thing, you know, well, it's, I guess what I'm saying is kind of ageist, right? I really don't think it's good to have like 80-year-old president. Okay.
Yeah, well, Francesco, what happened was the free-to-play model took over the industry. So in the free-to-play model, you're investing a lot up front for not really the big payout when you go live, right? It used to be, yeah, you make the game and then you sell it, and those sales in that first little bit are like really important. Now they make all their money from like microtransactions and stuff, and you get so many more people to come in and play it because it's free to play, that and you have whales and so forth, that you end up making more money from like this free to play model to some extent, right? But what that means is once you've got a good game, you want to just keep that game going, like League of Legends. So there are some of these games now that I think are probably perpetual games. Like I don't think that there will ever be a League of Legends 2. I think that they would just continue to iterate on the current League of Legends game. Just like there's not really actually an Overwatch 2. They didn't completely redo it. But I mean, if you had Overwatch 1, you get Overwatch 2, and I guess it's free to play too, but I digress. It gets weird, but the whole thing is that because of this, companies are not making as many games, right? Companies are not making as many games. You make one game and then you try and ride that forever. Like I remember when I went to Epic Games and they showed me like their repositories and things like that. And there was at least 6 games in development, right? So one of them was Fortnite, because we knew they were developing Fortnite at the time. And one of them was Paragon, which had not come out yet at that time and later came out, right? And the other 4, I have no clue. I don't know if they got canned, they're still working on them, or what. It seems to me that what happened over there was that once Fortnite, became a huge thing, basically everything in the company was basically rearranged to support Fortnite and make all of the, just squeeze everything that you could get out of Fortnite. Where is their next big game coming from? It would be time for them to release another game. It's not happening, right? It's not happening. I used to have the insider knowledge on Epic Games for sure. I did. I did on StarCraft too. You know what? One of the hardest things in my life for me was when I was told that they were going to announce StarCraft 2 in a week. And I was like, oh, I should totally buy their stock, because Activision Blizzard was a thing by that point, right? I knew before everybody did, and it was, well, I wouldn't say it was one of the hardest things in my life. I mean, I actually don't have a very difficult time keeping quiet about things, but I definitely thought a lot about, oh, you should just go and, nope, can't do that. You have insider knowledge. You can't do that. That was, I feel like that was one of my greatest privileges in life, was to know about StarCraft 2 before it came out, before it was announced. Because when it happened, everybody was like, oh my gosh, what? Yeah, those are good times. And you know what? I don't think I ever enjoyed playing it, like being involved in a game, more than I was playing the StarCraft 2 beta. That was so much fun. Better moral compass than some. I just, so here's something interesting I came across this week that I wanted to talk about today. Now I'm getting to like 8:50 and I'm like, oh, here are all of the things that I wanted to talk about. It was kind of a sleepy session. Now my brain's going. You got me going. Okay, so I've been coming across these videos on TikTok from this guy that claims to be like a Russian mobster, and he talks about things like, like you should speak slowly and things like this. Okay. I was like, well, who is this guy? Where's this? There's something off about this guy. I can't figure out what it is. Well, it turns out it's AI generated. The whole thing is AI generated. So I don't know how he's doing it. I'd say it's really, really good, because like the way he talks is slow, and I'm like, what's the models? How are you getting that? What was the data that you're basing this off of to be able to make this character? It's so wild. Okay. But he says a couple of things that I think are really good, that like, its approach, it's kind of like the, what do they talk about? Rules of power or whatever, that guy that wrote that book, it's those sorts of kinds of, tips, I guess you could say, but they're not. They are like Russian mafia based versions of them. Is kind of funny. Okay. But one of the things that this guy said that I thought was really, really interesting was he said that true luxury is silence. And I thought about that. I was like, like most of the truly rich people that it's out there, there's a really wide swath of these people that are just like filthy rich, and they have no public profile whatsoever. And they have no need to, like a lot of people are out there on social media talking a lot because their whole thing is to grow their audience so that they can make money from it, And if you have the money already, you don't really care about that stuff. Maybe that's why I don't care as much about like TikTok and stuff, is that it's like I had gone through a period where things were a little tight because my wife wasn't working, but now I've switched to a new job and she's working again, and we have, I'm like fully saving everything that I ever wanted to. It's great, right? So like, yeah, I don't know. Like this whole thing of like, oh, eventually maybe we move to just doing the YouTube channel full time. Like I would love to do that because I would love to be able to make you guys like great content, but it's not like at the forefront of my mind anymore. I don't care so much anymore because things are pretty nice right now. And I've become quiet. I was just like, I don't really care as much to make TikTok videos and stuff like that because of silence. And I think that if there's anything that the millennial generation, my generation, and me in particular, failed to value, it's silence. We've been taught to be loud. Everything about our world has been loud. I'm a loud person. I've always been a loud speaker, loud music, want to share my opinion. And now it's so much more often that I come out and find myself not saying anything. Like I come across a YouTube video, like if I knew something about a company, might be a little hard to like, oh, you could drop a little hint here or something like that. Like, no, I'm just like, no, just don't make you don't post at all. So that there's not even any risk at all that you might let something slip or tell. I had this happen to me. So, at church, in the LDS church, all of the positions are volunteer positions. Okay. So the bishop, he'd been bishop for a long time, and it was time for him to switch. And people were talking about like it was time for him to switch. But we were, there's a neighbor that they have an open pool on Thursday. So we're over there on Thursday talking to the neighbor. And the neighbor was saying some things that made me think, like maybe the new bishop, they'll do this or that or whatever. And I'm like, you must know something. That must mean that the new bishop has already been chosen, and that your husband's in the bishopric. Like I immediately knew. My wife didn't believe me, but then I was right. And it was kind of like, oh, like really, if you have information like that, the best thing to do is just to avoid talking about it at all, because you might not think that you're giving information out there, but sometimes people can piece it together, Oh, I don't know if it's that I have a better moral compass than some. I'm just really strict with myself. Right? It's one thing to keep quiet and one thing to refrain from making a lot of money with no risk. Haha. Well, I don't know if it really moved their stock that much after the announcement, but to me, so like another thing is, I do not find it difficult at all because to me, if I went out and I made a ton of money from having inside, non-public information and I traded that non-public information and got rich off of it, that would like ruin the whole thing. Like, what would be the fun in that? But I think that it would ruin the whole thing if your success came from cheating, right? Because the whole challenge is that it's a really tough game, and having successes despite all of that difficulty, that's what makes it a challenging and rewarding thing, right? Now, if you have, you find information, it's not non-public information, but you find information that not everybody has, then go for it. Because I think the whole game is being in the know is a large part of the game, okay? But don't trade non-public information, and don't break the law. This is the same thing with these cryptocurrencies. I probably could have made a lot more on cryptocurrency than I did. I mean, I made a few $1,000s, but if I had really, really like fully dedicated myself to cryptocurrency stuff and like become a cryptocurrency influencer, maybe I would have hit it big on one of those, possibly. But I think that it would have ruined it. It wouldn't be nearly as interesting as the path that I've gone down, which was where I really, really did end up learning what I believe to be kind of like the unspoken secrets about trading, like the things about the market that we really actually know that can assist you in executing a trade, and what the true nature. I wouldn't have found that stuff otherwise, and that means everything to me. Now that I know that stuff, I want to kind of graduate to managing funds, I guess. But block sell at 31, huh? It's turning back down again pretty quickly here at 9 o'clock, but it's time for me to go. Well, that's kind of curious. That big order up at evens and the 5-year is still there, but yeah, they weren't. In fact, this is actually turning quite aggressively sell, so insight. Well, that's not true. So I give you an example in rare earth element resources, because that stock, after having like a huge run while I had it, came back and the stock went completely dead. And while the stock was completely dead, all of the members of the board got a ton of options, like million dollars each of options. I think no, it was like 100,000 each of options, and that was like 2 or 3 months ago. And then, well, recently there was one piece of news that was just kind of like China banning the export of rare earth minerals, right? That kind of really boosted their stock. But then they also had news about like receiving a certain permit or something like that, and that really spiked the news up. And so those guys are all up huge on their options positions now. They knew, and they weren't trading non-public information per se, but they knew that the future of the company was good just from working in the company. Insider information isn't dead. I mean, there is always information out there. Like, that's the thing, is that the way that the market works, the market is just not informationally efficient at all. So the number of situations where you can find situations where something that's not factored into the markets, and I'm don't trade on non-public information, but there's still plenty of things that you can know that you can take advantage of that the market doesn't always know or isn't factoring in. At least it's everywhere. Yeah, well, I think what they did is perfectly fine with the SEC. Yeah. Although, given when they took them, I don't think that they explicitly knew that the permit was coming. Like that they had already had the permit, right? But they probably knew that what the trajectory was of things, and that eventually the stock was going to be favorable. Yes, I think they did. I think that that those trades that they made were based on what I would consider insider information, right? Well, it gets into this whole thing about like what really, because I think that the average person's opinion of what should be considered non-public information is not actually line up with what actually is non-public information. So you can see that in the whole argument about Congress when they say, well, if Congress is trading, that means that they're insider trading. Well, no. because it's all public information. But that's just the whole thing, is that like the ability for you to get and know something, even just from your research and stuff on the internet, the ability for you to piece something together that the rest of the market hasn't yet is actually a lot stronger than you think. And you'll find them every day. If you're really doing the work, you'll find them every day. Because that's the nature of the market. The market is very statistically efficient and very, very informationally inefficient. Current prices are not reflective of all available information. They're not even remotely close. Sure, they lobbied the process to get a permit approved in order for mining. Yeah, I don't know how long that process takes. I'm sure, I'm betting that they, like once you get approval, you would tell everybody else shortly after, right? So I'm sure that at the time that they took the trades, that they didn't have direct knowledge of it, but they might have known that it was likely, or that positive announcements were coming, and that the current price was a little silly. Yeah, they must have. I should go and look at that after this, because there was, if you go to like the Yahoo conversations, there's so many bears like trying to talk down the stock. And they were trying to talk down the stock when it was like 40 cents or whatever. So like those guys got slaughtered. They're still yapping, but those guys got slaughtered. So my general experience with Yahoo Finance is that anybody that's like, really loud is probably should be, contrarian signal. Because you're not loud unless you're unsure about your position, I think. If you really know stuff, you really know what's going on, then you don't need to say anything. I think you missed your question. Have you ever seen the subreddit R volume signals? Oh, yeah, I think so. So, if it's the subreddit that I'm thinking of, these guys will come in and post things about like, gamma positioning, and some other kinds of analyst reports. So I wouldn't, because it does kind of feel to me like they're trying to make like a way of trading that I can't like necessarily completely get on. But yeah, in terms of like finding good information, it's probably one of the better places on Reddit, although like what you're getting is mostly like stuff that you would get if you're reading Zero Hedge anyways. So, but yeah. I mean, largely speaking, anywhere that's talking about analyst reports, especially analyst reports on anticipated order flows or like the macroeconomics in general, that's really valuable stuff. I wouldn't just like take the recommendations from the analysts at face value, okay, because that's not how it works. What the fundamentals are not necessarily what the flows are going to be, but that's some of the best information that we get. So, I look for that 100%. And when I go to these other places like r/day trading, where like most of the people say, you don't need anything, just put up a chart with a 5-minute candlestick and follow the price action signals. That's, the worst places to be, right? They have no clue what's going on. Didn't set off any red flags. Yeah, I don't think that there's any red flags. I would just be careful about, so even with my content, okay, I would be really careful about becoming dogmatic about it, right? I mean, I think that I would have a tendency to be a little bit dogmatic about this. Like, we know some stuff, right? But there's a lot of other stuff that we don't know. And there's all sorts of other edge that you could acquire that's beyond just what we know about the markets, right? And there's almost certainly going to be better research in the future that will evolve our understanding even more. And if we turn it into dogmatism, because that's a person's tendency, then we might miss that new information that could potentially provide us, a real source of information. And so, that's the only thing that kind of gives me pause about that subreddit, is that it kind of feels to me like that they're trying to build a thing like that, because that happens a lot on Reddit, is that there's these people make a new subreddit and it seems to be just like an independent thing, but the people do have an agenda in the long run. They are trying to accomplish certain thing. So, but I mean, isn't everybody? It's just that when they don't really outright tell you what they're trying to do, then it's a problem, right? Whereas with me, I feel like I'm pretty open about where we're trying to take the community and what we're trying to accomplish and stuff, right? So, and I get what you feel like that, like no red flags is a little bit unsettling too. It's like, well, it's too good to be true. Nah. The world is imperfect. We should always be striving to be better, but I think we should also be happy with what we have. Part of what we have is the ability to continue to improve, right? Anyways, I'm yapping now. I better get going, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have a little bit better of a market, although I'm a little starting to worry about how quiet this market might be up until CPI. So, see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.